Hello Toy Collector fans, Universal Toy Collector here and welcome to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be taking a trip down memory lane and giving myself a good old kick in the nostalgia feels. Okie dokie then, so let's get straight into this then, shall we? So here in front of me, I have all the toy lines that I used to play with as a kid. Well, say play with, obviously you can see a My Little Pony and a Care Bear. They are here for, a reason obviously, otherwise they wouldn't be here. So let's get into that, shall we? And let's start with the Care Bear. Righty-ho then, so here is Funshine Bear, also known as Beetle Bear because someone's gnawed her fingers off. But the reason this Care Bear is here is because it takes me back to one Christmas. Well, the Christmas I actually got the Care Bear. So back in the day, I used to get like stockings and stuff like that down at the end of the bed. And I woke up fairly early one Christmas morning, quite excited as you are as a kid, and dived into my stocking and pulled out a couple of Star Wars figures. Well, I didn't know they were Star Wars figures. Opened them up and then they were Star Wars figures. Fantastic. Then I got to this and thought, oh, I wonder what this could be. Opened it up and I was like, I kind of felt disappointed. I was like, oh God, my mum and dad have put the wrong present in. So obviously a bit later on in the morning, because it was like too early for them to get up, I did question them about it and said, look, I think you've given me the wrong present. This is for one of the girls. And she's like, no. Well, my mum don't talk like that, but she said, no. Father Christmas bought a pack of 3 and there was one each for you. So I was like, so this is mine? She went, yeah. And I was like, oh. And I did feel quite gutted about it because I didn't want a bloody Care Bear, do you know what I mean? But I saw this at Sandown Park last year and I thought, do you know what? This really does remind me of my childhood, and it certainly brought back memories of that Christmas, getting the Care Bear. And Georgie kind of played a big part in this because she's been picking up toys that she had as a kid because it brings back memories for her. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to do the same thing. Not with everything, obviously. Otherwise, would be, loads of stuff and I've got no room as it is. But yeah, so that is the reason why this Funshine Bear is here. And like I said, I don't mind it. I think it's really colourful. The paint apps on it are pretty good. A pity about the fingers getting gnawed off. But I am so tempted to go back and get the rest of the original line of Care Bears. And I think there's only 10 of them. So yeah, it would be great if I managed to pick those up. I think Georgie's got a couple as well. So I think we only need about 8 or 7 more. And yeah, so that would be absolutely awesome. So that is Funshine Bear. Give me 2 seconds. I'm going to swap her out and bring out the My Little Pony. Okay then, so here is Bluebell, the My Little Pony. And I've got to say, I never collected ponies as a kid. I didn't really collect Care Bears either. But what I will say is both Care Bears and My Little Pony were big back in the day. And the reason this is here, because it will bring back memories of my sisters playing with their My Little Ponies. And again, that is a childhood memory for me. It didn't affect me personally. I didn't play with them, but it does, take me back to the days where my sisters would have like their dolls out and their little tea parties and the My Little Ponies and stuff like that. And so yeah, that is why the My Little Pony is here. Myself and Georgie have accumulated quite a collection of My Little Ponies. Now, funny enough, myself and Georgie, we haven't bought any of them. They've all been gifted to us. And that all started with Scuba Pete and Leslie, bless their cotton socks. They sent me through a gift, the Twinkle Hope My Little Pony for Give Kids the World after the first 24-hour charity live stream. And since then, everybody has decided to jump on the bandwagon and brand me as a brony. I will deny that. I'm not a brony. I've never bought a pony in my life. I don't intend to. But yeah, so people have just gone mental and sent us 3 My Little Ponies. And we've got some nice ones. I've got to say, the collection's come along quite nicely. And again, they do look really good on display. They're really colourful. And I know Adam Berry and Nick from APD, they've gifted us some. We've had loads sent over from the States by Ron. Georgie's got some nice 30th anniversary, 35th anniversary, should I say, and 40th anniversary. So yeah, I mean, like I say, we do have quite a collection now. But the reason this is here is simply because it does bring back memories of my sisters as kids, and them playing with their ponies. And I've got to say, the ponies are now a big part of my life, because I have one tattooed on my right thigh. Not because I just thought, do you know what, I fancy a tattoo. It was an incentive for the last 24-hour charity live stream we did. So I just want to say again a huge thank you to everybody in the community for partaking in that event and raising that money, and enabling me to get a tattoo. I feel very accomplished. Thank you very much. So anyway, that is the My Little Pony Bluebell. What I'm going to do now is swap out Bluebell and bring out a bit of Mask. 2 seconds. So next up then we have Brad Turner and his Condor motorcycle, which turns into a helicopter. And as a kid, I wasn't big into Mask. I watched the animated series on a Saturday morning or after school in the afternoons. But as toys go, I had a couple of vehicles, and Condor being one of them. Now, the reason I picked this up was because I was inspired by Georgie. Georgie has been picking up certain toys from her childhood because they gave her, the nostalgia feel. They brought back memories of her childhood. So I thought, you know what, that's not a bad idea. So to help her along, I picked up a Hurricane for her, which is another Mask vehicle. She had that as a kid. And so picking that up, it kind of inspired me to think, well, do you know what, I had Condor, so why don't I try and find one? I was going to pick up the Loyal Subjects version, but Adam Berry sort of like spoke to me, didn't say don't buy it, but he said you can pick up the originals for about the same price. So as I was perusing around NEC Toy Fair last year, I stumbled across this little beauty, and I thought, wow, doesn't look too bad. It was in good condition. Brad Turner wasn't the best, so the guy that was selling swapped out the Brad Turner that come with this particular vehicle and gave me this one, which has got absolutely superb paint apps. When I bought it, I was like quite happy I bought it, really, because it was an original toy that I had as a kid. So then I was sitting looking at it in the cafe with a lot of the other guys, and we noticed that the windscreen was missing. So Luke Reynolds said, don't worry about it, I can put you in touch with someone, we can source you one. Lo and behold, the next day he did that. I got put in touch with a guy on a Facebook group, and we managed to source a windscreen for a fairly decent price. So a couple of days later, that come through. Now I have a complete Condor. Awesome stuff. Will I be getting any other Mask vehicles? Very, very doubtful. I don't have the space to put it. Although space doesn't concern me, I can always find space and move stuff about. But like I say, I wasn't big into Mask. I did pre-order the 4 vehicles that Loyal Subjects have done, but since then I've cancelled them because, again, it wasn't a line that I was big into. I picked this up because it just brings back memories of my childhood, so that's that. What I'm going to do now is stop waffling on about Mask and give the MOTU guys a little bit of love. So, as always, 2 seconds. So here we have Skeletor and He-Man for a little bit of MOTU action. And I've got to say, again, as a kid, not really big into the action figures. I think I had 10, 5 bad guys, 5 good guys. I used to pair them off and fight each other and stuff like that. I was very much into the animated series. Again, used to watch that on a Saturday morning or after school. So I enjoyed that. But as far as the figures were concerned, I wasn't too much into them. I appreciated them, I enjoyed them, and I love playing with them. Now, the thing is, the story with this is I used to do a series, well, I still do a series called My Collecting Life, and I always used to ask the guys or girls if they had childhood toys in their collection, and some of them would say yes, they have, and I would be like, oh, wow, that is absolutely awesome. I would love to have my childhood toys in my collection, because up to a certain point, I didn't have any. And then one day, my dad sent me through a load of photos and said, do you want these? Looked through the photos, and it was a box of broken and beat up He-Man figures. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I definitely want these. He was down the tip, and he was just about to bin them before he decided, I'll tell you what, I think it's best if I had a look. So I'm glad he did. So Skeletor was one of those figures in that box, and I did a restoration video. So what I'll do is I'll leave a link to that video in the description below on this video, so you can go check it out. Not brilliant, you know, I did kind of struggle, but I struggle at most things these days. It's my age. But yeah, I'm absolutely over the moon by the fact that I now have these figures within my collection from my childhood, and it makes such a good difference looking at them, because I can sit and look at my original Star Wars Kenner figures and say, these look absolutely great, but they weren't mine. They weren't mine as a kid. These are someone else's. I've bought them off of eBay or bought them at toy fairs. I can look at my certain section of my MOTU figures and say, yeah, this is great. These were the toys I played with as a kid. Absolutely awesome. So Skeletor is the only one from my childhood within this display at the moment. He-Man I picked up at Sandown Toy Fair last year. I've been looking for a decent He-Man for a good long time. Couldn't really find one. And the seller that I bought this from, I'd seen him at Sandown, then I'd seen him at NEC, I'd seen him at Sandown, then I'd seen him at NEC, and he still had this figure. So I was like, okay, next time I see him at Sandown, I'm going to purchase. So I did. He did come with Battle Cat originally, but I didn't want Battle Cat. So we come to a fair price, shall I say, for He-Man. And here he is in my collection. And I've got to say, when I come back from that toy fair, I was absolutely buzzing, because he wasn't the only original 80s figure that I come back with from that toy fair. So I'm going to get to that next. So that is it for MOTU. I've got to say, these figures look absolutely stunning on display. The colours, they really do pop, very vibrant. Pretty much like the Mask vehicles. Pretty much like the Care Bears, very vibrant. And the My Little Ponies, again, very vibrant. And I do like that. I do like that splash of colour. It certainly brightens up the shelves. Right, so that is MOTU. Let's crack on with a bit of Transformer action, shall we? Again, 2 seconds. So here we have Jazz and Bumblebee from the 80s G1 Transformers line. And I've got to say, I am absolutely beaming that I have these in the collection. Now, again, with the figures, I wasn't big into Transformers. That was more my friend that I used to visit at a weekend and in the school holidays. He was an only child, so he had a lot of toy lines. And it was like walking into a toy store. It was absolutely superb. Loved it. Again, I watched the cartoons. I used to like the animated series, really into that. And yeah, so my nan went to the States in the early 80s, and when she come back, she bought us grandkids back some bits and bobs, and she handed me this Transformer here, Jazz. I had no idea who he was. I liked it because it was a sports car, but I was blown away by the fact it could transform into a robot. And that was the only Transformer that I ever had. For some reason, I don't know why. Like I say, it wasn't like I wasn't into the animated series when it came out. I did enjoy it. But I think it was because I used to play with it a lot around my friend's house and stuff like that, that I thought, well, there's no need for me to get it. And not only that, I was big into other things as well, and I had a lot of that stuff, and we get to that in a minute. But yeah, so when I went to Reigate Toy Fair, I spoke to Rob from Tats and Toys, because he does sell a lot of Transformers. And I did ask him, I said, do you have a Jazz? And he said, I do. Next time I see you, I'll bring it along, and we'll do a deal. And that was at Sandown last year. The same day I bought He-Man, and he gave me a good price on it. But the condition is absolutely outstanding. He is pearly white. The paint apps are superb. There's a little crack in the windscreen. I'm okay with that. It's going to be in robot mode. You can't see it. But yeah, I've got to say, I am blown away. And this, like I say, really does bring back memories of that day my nan came back from the States and we went round to visit her. Again, for me, this is just all about nostalgia and stuff like that. And that's why I'm doing this video, because each one of these toys here has a meaning to me. And I think that's important. And so, yeah, Bumblebee, I picked up again from Rob, I think at the beginning of this year, because I've got a Bumblebee display now. So I thought it would be nice if I had the original version. I do have a reissue version of Bumblebee on card. I thought it would be great to get an original version. So here he is, again, in absolutely superb condition. So thank you, Rob, from Tats and Toys. So yeah, again, just absolutely beaming now that I've got Bumblebee and Jazz in the collection. And Jazz means a hell of a lot. Like I say, he was the only Transformer that I had as a kid, and he means the world to me. So to have him in the collection, even though he isn't mine, it still does mean a lot. It would be preferable if he was mine and that it was the toy that I had as a kid. But unfortunately, back in the days, toys were meant to be played with. The Transformers weren't exactly made of strong stuff, and they did break because they were quite delicate, so I'm sure mine's in a bin somewhere. Anyhow, that is Jazz and Bumblebee from the 80s G1 Transformers line. Let's get a bit of G.I. Joe action going on. 2 seconds. So representing the G.I. Joe line, we have Airborne and Cobra Commander. This was a toy line that I was very much into. I loved the comics. I loved the animated series. I loved the look of the vehicles and the figures. And me and my friend, we used to spend absolute hours playing with this outside in the summer or indoors in the winter. Absolutely awesome. Now, myself as a collector or having toys, I didn't have a great deal. I remember having Dusty. I remember having the Crimson Guard. I remember having the Mobat and Steeler. And I remember having Ace and the Sky Striker. I don't have Dusty. I don't have a Crimson Guard. I don't have the Mobat or Steeler. I do, however, have the Sky Striker, albeit the Action Force version and not the G.I. Joe version. And I do have Ace as the pilot. Now, I was going to get Ace down and put him in front of us today, but he's happy in the cockpit. He wanted to stay there, so I've got these two to represent the line. But yeah, so many memories of playing G.I. Joe as a kid. Absolutely awesome. I would get around my friend's house really early on a Saturday morning and a Sunday morning, much to the annoyance of my friend's mum, because it was before breakfast time, and sometimes he was like still in bed. It was about 8 o'clock in the morning. I was like, get up, you lazy git, what are you doing? So he used to have breakfast, and then he couldn't eat without me eating, so his mum used to give me breakfast as well. So we used to have 2 breakfasts at the weekend. Marvellous stuff. But we used to sit and read the comics. We used to look and at the animated series, and then we used to go and just let our imagination run wild, and we used to do missions and all sorts of stuff. And we used to take inspiration from reading the Larry Hama comics and stuff like that, or we used to take inspiration from the animated series. We'd sort of like mix them together, put our own ideas in. We used to have absolute hours of fun. Now, the reason Airborne is here because he is my favourite character. I just think he looks so cool. As figures go now, I do have a nice little collection, and that's no thanks to people like Scuba Pete, who have really, really sort of like helped me out. Bless him. He's got me parts for the the Action Force or G.I. Joe tactical platform, battle platform. What else? Loads of Dreadnoks. He's helped me out immensely with the Dreadnoks, which I just thank you so much. And then, of course, Chris Miwa, who kindly gifted me the Cobra Hydrofall earlier this year. Absolutely stunning vehicle. I still need a couple of bits to complete that, but I will get there in good time with that. But yeah, absolutely awesome. And you know, I've got the Killer Whale now, the Action Force version. That was a restoration that I did back in 2020. Then I've got the Sky Striker. I've got the Water Moccasin. I've got the Cobra Ferret. The Cobra Ferret was one of my grail pieces that I wanted to get to the collection. And when I found out that they were going to be releasing it in 6-inch scale, I was like, wow, it's a no-brainer. So I managed to pick that up. It looked absolutely awesome. And then I managed to find a 3 3/4 inch version of the Cobra Ferret. The original one, the blue one, not the Tiger Force version. And I picked it up and bought that. Got it home, looking through it, and it was missing parts, or it had the wrong seat or whatever it was. So Kieran Ball, bless him, watched the video and then went out and kindly purchased or sourced the missing parts that I needed to complete the ferret. So now I have a complete ferret thanks to Kieran Ball. So again, appreciate your friendship, guys, and your generosity. It does mean a hell of a lot. Thank you so much. I am pretty much into the 6-inch G.I. Joe classified series figures. I think they look absolutely superb. But I still get that real nostalgia buzz, and the days that I used to spend in the summer and the weekends around my friend's house just playing G.I. Joe. Absolutely stunning. So that's enough whiffle waffle about G.I. Joe. Let's move on to a little bit of Star Wars action. So here we have Luke Skywalker in his X-Wing pilot outfit and Darth Vader, and they are from the 1970s, 80s Star Wars Kenner line. And wow, what can I say? The reason these two are here are because these were the first 2 figures that I got, I think, in 1980, after the release of The Empire Strikes Back. I got Luke's X-Wing, I got Darth Vader's TIE Fighter, and I got these two figures to go with it. And wow, wow. So I was blown away by those vehicles, but the thing that really got me was when I watched Star Wars for the first time and saw those S-foils open up on the attack of the Death Star in Star Wars, the original Star Wars. It just blew my mind. So that gave me a whole new appreciation of the X-Wing and the TIE Fighter as well. But this toy line here, Star Wars, was my go-to Star Wars line. The hours that I spent with, like, so I was going to, in my room, coming up with Star Wars missions and just having the figures and doing this and that and the vehicles, and then again going around to the same friend that I used to play G.I. Joe with. He used to have a lot of Star Wars as well, and the hours and hours of fun we had and the memories made because of these. And it's not just Star Wars, it's everything that's in front of me really does get me in the nostalgia feels. It really does. It brings back so many memories. But Star Wars was a big part of my life. Like I said earlier in the video, it's nice that I can turn around and look at my vintage Kenner display and think, yeah, fantastic. It would have been so much better. It would have meant so much more to me if I could have turned around and looked at those and said, yeah, those are my childhood toys there, Star Wars. Unfortunately, with my Star Wars figures, they were put in a box up in the loft, and then one day a friend of the family came round and my dad said, do you want those Star Wars figures? I must have been about probably 14, 15, maybe a little bit older, 16, 17. And I was like, no, not really. And he said, do you mind if takes them for his son? I was like, yeah, okay, yeah. And a week later, we went round there, and the state of the figures and the vehicles, I was like, oh my God, gutted. Now, I understand that back in the day, toys were built to be played with, but you had limbs and heads missing and stuff like that, guns missing, paint apps, just chipped, and it was like, oh my God. And that was in a week. Vehicles broken and stuff. But at the end of the day, someone else had them and enjoyed them. But like I say, now I can look at these and think, wow, absolutely incredible. Absolutely loving it. And for me, the Star Wars figures are the granddaddy of the 3 3/4 inch figure line. They really are. I know they're very basic within their articulation, the 5-point of articulation. Then, so like in the early 80s, you had the O-ring figures with the posable figures. The articulation was better on the G.I. Joe figures. Absolutely brilliant, and I love that. But still, it was Star Wars that tugged on the heartstrings. And I can remember one person saying a couple of years back, when they did the Power of the Force line, it would have been great if they'd have done those as O-ring style figures. I don't think it would have done, because it wouldn't have fitted in with the Star Wars figures that were already out there from Kenner, the 5 POA figures. Again, these don't look much, but the memories that these figures bring back, the nostalgia that you get, the playability of these figures, you can't get that in modern day toys. As much as they look great and the articulation's perfect and the engineering of these toys look absolutely superb, the playability and the feeling you get when you look at these toys it just means absolutely everything. And and I think I would be lost if I didn't have what I'm seeing in front of me here right now. As nice as the other figures are, the TVC, the Black Series, the G.I. Joe classified figures, the DC Multiverse, the Marvel Legends, those kind of figures, they were all absolutely awesome. But I never had any of those really as a well, you wouldn't have had Black Series as a kid, would you? What a donut, it wasn't even thought of then. But what I'm saying is, if I didn't have these figures in front of me, I would be missing out on this nostalgia feeling for sure. Absolutely awesome. So yeah, marvelous stuff. Right, so that's it basically. I just wanted to share some thoughts and memories with you with the toys that I've got in front of me. When it comes to vintage toys, I don't have a big selection. I've got, well, saying that, tell a lie, I've got a massive selection or collection of vintage Star Wars. That was my go-to line. So I've got a lot of the vehicles now. I've got a lot of the figures. I still do need some figures. I need to pick those up at some point. But everything else, the MOTU, the G.I. Joe, the Transformers, the Mask, the Care Bears, the My Little Pony, I might not have had much as a kid, but man, I did appreciate it. I'm glad I've got these bits in my collection now. And sometimes I kind of think, you know, would it have been better if I'd have just stuck with vintage toys? Because you've got chasing 80s toys, you've got vintage Toy Us, you've got people like Scuba Pete, you know, Adam Berry. They all collect vintage stuff, but the thing is, I do like the modern stuff as well. So it's trying to get that balance between the two, the modern and the vintage. But what I will say is, and when I get my words out, is I'm really happy with what I've got in front of me. And like I say, sitting here just looking at these toys and going through these memories, absolutely awesome. That's it then for this video, really. I don't think I've got too much more to say without going back and repeating myself. So what I will say is, if you're new to the channel, feel free to comment, like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell to let you know of more content. And as always, there will be more content. Appreciate you watching. Thank you very much. Very much appreciate your support, your generosity, and your friendships that I've made while doing YouTube. It does mean a hell of a lot to me. Thank you so much. Take care, stay safe, and we shall see you in the next video. Bye for now.